Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Haribo 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 Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajakacarya Ashtottara Satashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajakacarya Ashtottara Satashi Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nandakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Go Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jai Jagannath Puri Nilachala Dham Ki Jai. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. Jai Shri Gauritai Ki Jai. Jai Radha Sarat Bihari Ki Jai. Jai Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai. Jai Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Jai Yamunamai Gangamai Ki Jai. Jai Kamveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Go Premanandi. Hare Hare. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Guru Shri Gauranga. Hare Krishna. So before I begin the class this morning, I want to take a moment to ask all of you to please keep in your prayers one of your former temple presidents from ISKCON Philadelphia, Seshadas Prabhu. I just heard that he had a stroke. Not sure how serious, but he had a stroke recently. And we just want to pray for him. He did so much service there in ISKCON Philly. Some of you may not know him, but if you came to the memorial service for Vishnu Aradhanam, he spoke that evening, spoke so beautifully of his time in Philadelphia. I was very fortunate to have known him since we were both bhaktas together in 1974. And we were requested to go together to Gainesville, Florida, to do some campaigning for Amarendra Prabhu. I think he ran for city council, but they needed some African-American devotees. So Bhakta Seth Seshadas and me, Bhaktivan, we actually knocked on every door of every African-American family in Gainesville, Florida, to campaign for Amarindra, and we preached Krishna consciousness together. So I have a very deep love for my dear God brother, and he's done so much service for this movement. He's a GBC, part of the legal team of the movement. So, and of course, he served as temple president in ISKCON, Philadelphia. So please keep him in your prayers. I'm sure he will recover, but your prayers will be very helpful. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, text number 15. Yadanuchasina yukta karma granti nibandhanam chidanti kovidastasya ko na kuryat kata ratim. Yadanudyasina yukta karma granti nibandhanam chindanti kovidastasya ko na kuryat kata ratim. Yad anu yasina yukta karma granti nibandhanam chindanti kovidastasya ko na kuryat kata ratim. Someone else?
Hare Krishna. Yadanudhyasina yukta karma granthi nibandhanam chindanti kovidastasya ko na kuryat katha ratim.
Anyone else?
Yad anudashina yukta karma granti nibandhanam chidanti kovidastasya kona kuryat kataratim.
Yad anudyasina yukta karma granthi nibandhanam chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat kataratim.
Yad anuyasina yukta karma granti nibandhana chindani kavitas rasya dona kuryat kataratim.
Yadanudyasina yukta karma granthi nibandhanam chindanti kovidastasya kono kuryat kadharatim.
Yad anudhyasina yukta karma granti nibandhanam chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat katharatim.
Hare Krishna.
Yad
anudhyasina yukta karma granthi nibandhanam chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat kataratim. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So word for word, yat, which, anudya, remembrance, asina, sword, yuktaha, being equipped with, karma, reactionary work, granti, knot, nibandhanam, interknit, chindanti, cut, kovida, intelligent, tasya, his, ka, who, na, not, kuryat, shall do, kata, messages, ratim, attention. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work, karma, by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Purport. The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive work. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This is because all the activities of the Supreme Lord, his Leela, are transcendental to the modes of the material energy. They are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore a constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of material bondage. Liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service, so that ultimately the devotional service alone predominates. Then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of the fruitive workers can lead one to liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. Similarly, empirical knowledge overcoated with devotional service is called jnana yoga. But pure bhakti yoga is independent of such karma and jnana because it alone can not only endow one with liberation from conditional life, but also award one the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshiping him always without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of the different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures. Om Agyanatimiranyasa Janan Janan Salakaya Chakshu Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. So I'm Rupa Gadav Maya Tadate Swapadantakam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Go Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work karma by remembering the personality of Godhead. The idea of this knot, which is created by contact of the spiritual spark with the material elements. And Srila Prabhupada describes like if you want to disentangle or pull apart a knot, a very strong knot, it's difficult. But if you take a sword or some sharp instrument, then you can immediately cut through that. So trying to disentangle ourselves from this material world is quite difficult by our own efforts or by the combined efforts of many other persons working together. It's very, very difficult. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 8, and also 5th canto, chapter 5, text number 8. Pumsha striya maituni bhavametam tayormito hridaya grantim ahu atogriha chetra sutapta vitaya janasya mohoyam ahamameti. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, One becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. A little bit of the purport. Sex serves as the natural attraction between man and woman. And when they are married, their relationship becomes more involved. Due to the entangling relationship between man and woman, there is a sense of illusion whereby one thinks this man is my husband or this woman is my wife. This is called Hridaya Granthi, the hard knot in the heart. This knot is very difficult to undo. Even though a man and woman separate either for the principles of an ashram or simply to get a divorce, in any case, the man always thinks of the woman and the woman always thinks of the man. Thus, a person becomes materially attached to family, property, and children, although all of these are temporary. So this knot, this attachment, especially between man and woman, it's interesting how it can be understood to be the cause of many of the problems in the world. Because as it says here, one begins to think, my home, my family, and you can extend that, my community, my race, my country, my political belief. All this I, me, and mine stems from this hard knot, this illusion that's created as we come into this material world by coming in contact with the material elements. This knot is created and is exemplified by this attraction between the man and the woman. Now, it's not that men and women cannot have relationships, because that's part of the Vedic culture. I'm sorry, that little noise in the background. Part of the existence we have in this world. Though we have to trace out the causes of our attachment. I'm not sure why I'm getting that beeping sound, but we have to trace out these attachments. And it starts there. And it grows and it grows and it grows. And as I said, it keeps expanding into so many concepts. But how do we get free from that? So this idea again, and Prabhupada says, to undo this knot. It's not easy for an individual to try and undo this knot of attachment that we have in the heart. It goes very deep. I remember one devotee said that it's so deep, and he made this expression, so deep, this attachment for sense gratification. And of course, at the top of the list is this sex desire. I remember Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj when he gave a Vyasa Puja offering one time, and he stated it was more like a meditation on Srila Prabhupada. And he was explaining to Srila Prabhupada in his Vyasa Puja meditation how he had accomplished so many things. And we know his history, you know, the work he did in Africa, the work he did in Washington, the preaching all over the world. So he was sharing that with Srila Prabhupada, as devotees used to do. They would go to Srila Prabhupada and explain the projects they're working on. But then in his meditation, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Srila Prabhupada would say to him, but have you conquered sex desire? Have you conquered that? And then he would explain some other things he had done. And Prabhupada kept going back in his meditation saying, but have you conquered sex desire? Because without that being under control, everything else becomes hampered. So what is that sex desire? Not just for the physical act of sex. Profit, adoration, and distinction are also part of that, can be included in that. Seeking to have too much profit unnecessarily, seeking to be recognized, a distinguished person in society, and to be adored by others. It's very, very dangerous, and it makes that knot tighter and tighter. There's a thing I believe is called a Chinese finger puzzle. Some of you may have seen it. And you stick your fingers in both sides, and then you try to pull your fingers out. And the more you pull, the more difficult it is. It's almost like you can't pull it out. I remember as a child having one of those things, like Chinese finger puzzles. And just so when I was exposed to Krishna consciousness and about this concept of the knot and getting disentangled, I remembered that Chinese finger puzzle, how difficult it was to come out. And that's how difficult it is to get out from this attachment in the material world. But there is hope. It is actually great hope. And the other verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, when it says, the attraction, this is verse number 9. Yadamano hridaya grantir asya, karmanubadho drida ashla teta, tadajana samparivartate smad, mukta param yat yatihaya hetum. When the strong knot, again, we're thinking about this knot. We're trying to get a visualization of this knot and how we're trying to undo it because it's holding us back, it's weighing us down. So we want as much information as we can to help us work with this situation, get free from this situation. So these verses in the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and other sources, they help us. They give us a roadmap how to deal with this situation. But first we have to recognize that it's there. Okay, that's one of the problems. Sometimes we don't recognize that it's actually there. Sometimes we get caught up in some illusory concept of life and enjoying and aspiring for things, working hard for things, even as devotees. So we have to always come back to this Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and the acharyas to help us stay focused. So here, these verses in the 5th canto are very powerful. Lord Rishabdev speaking to his sons. So verse number 9, 5th chapter, when the strong knot in the heart of a person implicated in material life due to the results of past action is slackened, one turns away from his attachment to home, wife, and children. In this way, one gives up the basic principle of illusion, I and mine, and becomes liberated. Thus, one goes to the transcendental world. So he's saying the basic principle, but this is how we build our lives. It's difficult for people to understand, how will I build my life if I don't think of I, me? Like there's a phrase, what's in it for me? Most people in life, they're thinking, what's in it for me? When you come to someone and you want to elicit or solicit something from them, they're thinking, what's in it for me? Now, that's a dangerous mentality for devotees. Maybe the word dangerous is too heavy. It's a limiting mentality for a devotee. It limits our ability to make progress in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prahlad Maharaj talks about this in the 7th canto, this idea of I, me, and mine, and giving it up because it's holding us back. What's in it for me? Devotional service means what's in it for Krishna. It's not what's in it for me. You don't judge whether you take up devotional service based on what's in it for you. How will I benefit from it? And even subtly, how will I enjoy this service? I mean, you think someone asks you to do some service and you process it in your mind. It looks like it's going to be painful. Looks like it's going to be difficult. And then you think, no, I don't think I want to do that. Now, of course, you have to think if you're qualified to do something or if you have the resources, facility, and time to do something, but thinking whether or not I will be happy doing that. Happiness comes from devotional service. It's part of devotional service. When you engage in the service of the Lord, you feel joyful. Susukam kartam avyayam. It's a blissful experience, supposed to be a blissful experience, but it's blissful when it's done properly. When it's done for the pleasure of the Lord, it becomes wonderful, satisfying. And over time, you begin to realize the beautiful nature of devotional service. But when you approach it thinking, what's in it for me, then it becomes more difficult. So in the purport, there's a nice blessing, a nice blueprint for our happiness. When by associating with sadhus, and engaging in devotional service, one is gradually freed from the material conception due to knowledge, practice, and detachment. The knot of attachment in the heart is slackened. Thus, one can get freed from conditional life and become eligible to return home back to Godhead. Now, I'm not going to go into the upcoming verses because this is one of my favorite sections of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And most of you have heard me, whenever you've heard me speak, I always quote the next few verses, but I'm not going to get into those verses because that's for whoever's giving the next classes. I don't want to steal the thunder, as they might say. But this whole part of the Bhagavatam, it's an outline of how to get free from the attachments to this material world by the process of devotional service. But it's presented very specifically. We don't have to speculate how to get free, come up with different ideas and have commissions and try to figure things out. And no, it's very easily understood because the Bhagavatam lays it out step by step by step by hearing, constantly hearing the glories of the Lord. Why? Why is that so important? It's very subtle. It's like we all have the experience to some degree or another in the educational circles or fields of life. It was interesting yesterday, my youngest granddaughter, she's 6, and she graduated from kindergarten. So my wife and I virtually attended her graduation. And all these little kids, they all came on the screen. They had their little graduation caps and gowns. I was like, oh my God, they're just 6 years old. And they're being trained in the educational process. And then we go on, like my granddaughter's going to the 1st grade, and it's like very exciting. And then high school, and then college, and then postgraduate studies, and all these things. They're very interesting. And we get wrapped up in that. And we know what that field of life is like. So when we come to Krishna consciousness, we may think, let me just apply my educational concepts to Krishna consciousness. Of course, we have to use our intelligence. We have to study. Prabhupada says, scrutinizingly, and I'm going to read a verse also glorifying the 6 Goswamis, and they talk about that scrutinizing. We have to scrutinizingly study, but not thinking ourselves to be the source of the realizations that come from that study. In our educational pursuits, we work hard. We study, we memorize, we research, and we put it all together. We write papers, and then we gather some information, and we pursue life as we like. In Krishna consciousness, there's a different dynamic. Srila Prabhupada points out in one place, there's this aspect of revelation. That's the exciting part about Krishna consciousness. It's not dependent on us. It's dependent on us to do our devotional service. There's a little echo there. And Kaivalya, I think it's coming from yours because I see your thing lights up every time. So in devotional service, it's different. And what happens by that process of practicing, because we're not on the level of pure devotional service. Most of us would humbly admit that we're not on the level of pure devotional service yet. We're trying to get there. Srila Prabhupada encouraged us, don't wait for the next life. Of course, by Krishna consciousness, basically we're guaranteed to get a decent birth in the next life. Suchinam Shrimatange He Yoga Brasta Brajayate, good family, rich family, pious family. And that sounds nice. It's a little bit of a comfort, but Prabhupada said, don't depend on that. Finish your business in this lifetime. He called it your Krishna conscious business in this lifetime. Finish it. So this devotional service done correctly, as it says here, thus one can get freed from the conditional life and become eligible to return home, back to Godhead. Becoming eligible, just like if you want to vote, because there's so much talk about voting now. And so to become eligible to vote, what do you have to do? We have to driver's license or this, that. So many things you have to have. You go to the voting place. If you don't have it, they turn you away. So you want to go to the spiritual world, but we don't want to be turned away. We don't want to take all this baggage with us, this knot that began when we came here. We can't take that with us. That won't help us get into the spiritual world. So if we finesse it, caress it, cultivate these material desires, these attachments, even, some of them are just subtle. This identification with this body, which is amazing. Thinking I'm a black man, white man, a woman, Gujarati, Bengali. You know, you've heard it a million times. That's why Srila Prabhupada a million times reminds us, you're not this body. Because without getting past that, it's hard to go anywhere else. That's the weight that's holding us down. And it appears that it's stemming from this sex desire, this attraction between man and woman. Again, we don't want to decry that because it's part of life. Husbands and wives, people loving each other, raising a family. It's part of Krishna consciousness. It's a wonderful thing, nothing bad, unless it becomes the center of our lives. Srila Prabhupada explains that at night, people are sleeping and engaging in sex life. And in the daytime, they're striving like anything to make money so they can do what? Enjoy what? Same cycle over and over. At nighttime, sex and dreaming and sleeping, daytime working hard, nighttime sex and dreaming, daytime working hard. It goes on and on. For the devotee, it's different. Daytime, the devotee is thinking, how can I serve Krishna? How can I engage in Krishna service? Even in the midst of our mundane responsibilities. I mean, most of you have some either job or profession or children to raise, so many things that appear to be distractions. They appear to be distractions, and they can be distractions if we allow them to be. They can also be impetuses for devotional service. Okay, how does that work? Let me think, how can I engage my family in Krishna consciousness? How can I engage my resources in Krishna consciousness? How can I use my physical location for Krishna consciousness? Preaching from my home, preaching at my job. Now, well, of course, at your job, you have to be careful. Sometimes if you start preaching, you might get in trouble. I remember when I was working, right before joining the temple, I worked, it was so wonderful. I worked 1 block from the temple. I worked on 14th Street. I think Vishnu Gadar might remember that area, 14th and Peachtree, Midtown Atlanta. So I worked at the Colony Square and then 14th Street, and then the temple was on 13th Street. So it was very, very interesting. So I was at my job and I had a friend who was into Buddhism, wonderful guy. He was into Nammeho Rinjeko. I think that's how they say it, Nammeho Rinjeko. And he was so much into that. And I was just getting into Krishna consciousness. So every day we would sit down in our location where we worked. We were working on the dock, receiving all the things for that big place. And we would talk about philosophy. And he would talk about Buddhism. And I would talk about Krishna consciousness at work. It was Krishna's grace that I could do that. Also, I had a wonderful facility. I had an office there on the dock. And every day from 4 to 5 o'clock, I had this 1 hour break. So I would read the Bhagavad Gita every day in my little office from 4 to 5. And then I had another responsibility. They had these 2 brand new buildings. They were condominiums for the upscale people. And my job was to take the dignitaries up and down on the elevator. Okay, up and down on the elevator, receive them, take them up. And in between taking them up and down, I'd read Bhagavad Gita. And it's funny, some people say, what are you reading? And I explained whatever little bit I know as Bhakta Ben in Krishna consciousness, so that we can find creative ways. Here's the secret. If you desire to share Krishna consciousness with others, guess what happens? Krishna makes the arrangement. How is it that we all got here in Krishna consciousness? Devotees were going out, praying to Krishna, please allow me to find someone today I can share Krishna consciousness with. Then they found us. The devotee found me standing downtown Atlanta, just standing there, waiting for the city bus, standing there, spaced out. And that devotee must have been praying to find someone that he could pull out of Maya. Om Magyanati Mirandasya. So they found me and gave me Krishna consciousness. It was so beautiful. So in this way, Krishna is ready to reveal to us all these secrets, and not only reveal the secrets, but to remove the knot. See, that knot, it's almost impossible for us, as Prabhupada used the word, undo that knot. I mean, you've seen it. Maybe like a good example would be like on a boat. I don't like boats because I don't like going in the water. It's too dangerous for me. But anyway, They have these big ropes that they tie to tie the boat to the dock, and huge ropes. Sometimes they're really huge. So you have to see it like that. This knot is not like, you know, the little small threads you can pull apart. No, no, no. This knot is big. This knot is holding us in this material world. It must be powerful. And we think we're just going to go up to this knot that happened when we came to this material world, and it's been compounding itself over lifetime after lifetime. We're just going to join ISKCON and just zip, pull it apart by virtue of who I am. Because we come with, again, with that I, me, and mine. I came from this background. I came from that background. Da, 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 da. We all came out of suffering, maybe a little bit of inquisitiveness, but we were all suffering on some level. And we took to this movement because we wanted a solution to our problems. And then we come into the movement and start thinking ourselves to be this, that, or the other, forgetting that we were blessed by Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's followers who lifted us up. So then we try to disentangle ourselves from that knot. I remember Hridayananda Maharaj was giving a class once. He was talking about this sex desire. He said, he framed it by saying torture. We're being tortured by this desire. Even though it has its place, it has its utilization to produce Krishna conscious children. That's the proper utilization of this activity. But apart from that, it's holding us, it's pulling us like anything. So he said, he described it like torture. For someone who's trying to make progress in Krishna consciousness, to be disturbed by that, it is like torture. To be disturbed by sexual desires and again, profit, adoration, and distinction, all those things, it's like torture. So he explained that we may have to live with this for the rest of our lives. It is so intense. Are we prepared to withstand the pressure, the pain of this, knot, this attachment, this botheration, and still try to be Krishna conscious? Are we prepared to spend our lives fighting with this? We may have to. Krishna he may undo that knot for us immediately. Now, the next few verses will help us get a better sense of how to do that with the help of Krishna and the help of his transcendental narrations in Srimad Bhagavatam. Then the whole process becomes easier when we become dependent on the Lord to undo that knot. But like that Chinese finger puzzle, if we try to do it like this ourselves, it becomes more entangling. We have to start depending on Krishna. And then bhakti yoga, devotional service, is emphasized over and over and over again. I don't know how many thousands of times in Srila Prabhupada's purports, in the verses, the importance of devotional service. But again, you have to analyze those two words. We know what service is. We know how to do service. Any of you who have a job or business, you know what service is. You clock in, you clock out, you do your work. You become expert at it. You get raises and promotions and all that business. But very few people, I would venture to say, truly, truly love the work they do. I think they would rather be at home with their family, right? All of you workers out there, you would rather be home. You would rather be in the temple. You'd rather be doing what you enjoy doing. And like they say, if you can find the work that you really enjoy, then you're no longer working. That's a phrase that they use. If you can find that job or that business that you really enjoy it, then you're no longer working. You're in a different space. Devotional service, not just service, because we all know how to do service by virtue of the work we've done in life, the school that we've done, all those things. We know what service means. So when we join the movement, we may have some limited idea. We actually do have a limited idea of what it is we're getting involved in. And we know how to do service. So if the temple commander, the temple vice president, or the temple president, whoever the senior Vaishnava asks you to do something, you process it, okay, that's that. But it takes time to realize that you should do that bhajitam priti purvakam. That takes time. Doing it with love. That's devotional service, pure devotional service, done with love. You have to really, really meditate on this. whatever service you are blessed to do, allowed to do. You have to understand, when you're giving devotional service, you're being blessed. Sometimes you think we're being cursed. Why are you asking me to do it? Well, I don't want to do this. The mind just goes crazy. But you're being blessed. Krishna's coming to you through somebody, some devotee, and giving you an opportunity. As I said from the beginning, you may or may not be able to because of time, place, circumstance. You can't do everything. If 10 devotees come and ask you to do 10 different things, you can't do all 10. You have to use your intelligence. Which ones can you do? But you should take up devotional service. But you have to learn how to do devotional service. Again, this chapter that you're in, you're so blessed to be at this stage, reading the second chapter of the first canto. It is amazing because it's revealing. So then, Bhajitam Priti Purvakam, Priti, that means love, devotional service, devotion service. We never heard that before in our lives. I mean, I never heard of that. Devotional service. Maybe in the military, they talk about being devoted to your country, being prepared to die for your country. I never heard that in school, devotional service in school, or work devotional service. Never heard that. It's new. How do you do service with devotion? Now, let's think about this for a second. We talk about love of Godhead. And I love the way Srila Prabhupada explains this in one place. If you love someone, if you truly love someone, then you will be inspired to speak about that person all the time. You may have noticed I speak about my youngest granddaughter quite a bit, because actually I really love my youngest granddaughter because she's becoming very open and a little bit Krishna conscious. And she called me last night. She said, Grandpa. I said, what is it? I just want to say I love you. Good night. I was like, wow, that is so sweet. It was so nice, you know? So I talk about her because I have appreciation and respect for her, and she talks about me. So how much do we talk about Krishna? I was listening to my Srila Prabhupada Bhagavatam class, which I listen to every day. And I always take note or make note of how many times Srila Prabhupada says Krishna and talks about Krishna in his lectures. It's absolutely phenomenal. It is not like he has a bunch of notes in front of him and it's flowing from him, because that is his happiness, to say the name Krishna. Krishna's dancing on your tongue. The vibration's going, and it's going in and it's purifying the heart. And as I've pointed out many times, and you know this, the heart is a muscle. What is the sound vibration doing to that muscle? Nothing. Maybe there's some vibratory thing, I don't know, that's happening. They have all these things they do with sound, and sound can do this and sound can do that. And I've heard people, even devotees, try to explain the holy name in the sound concept. Be careful with that. We're not obligated to try to get people to see things in a materialistic way. The holy name is not material. Be bold. Explain it's transcendental. Listen to these next few verses, whoever's giving classes in the next few verses, up to Nasa Praisa Badrisu, okay? Because that is what we have to explain to people. This mystical, transcendental nature of the glorification of the Lord. Not just chanting the Maha Mantra, but Srimad Bhagavatam, glorification of the Lord. What is that? Does it change the physical nature of the physical heart? No. The soul, super soul, all there in the heart. And intelligence, mind, and false ego, also there. And that false ego is covering us. And by this process of hearing and chanting sincerely, performing devotional service, the things that are disturbing us, that are holding us back, that knot, which we can't undo, becomes undone by the grace of the Lord. Subtly, spiritually subtly, by hearing his glories. Therefore, what does it say? With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work. by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Me, for one. I'm so stubborn that I won't pay attention. I get off track. I told you before, as a brahmachari, I was really confused at one point about something. I was just so much in anxiety. One day I was just crying like a baby. I just was so upset. And my temple president, my dear friend Balavantra Prabhu, he told me, Balabaja, just go back and read the Bhagavatam. You know how much you love the Bhagavatam. Go read the Bhagavatam. You'll feel better. And lo and behold, just by reading the Bhagavatam, I felt better. My problems were solved. So think about this. Whatever problem any one of us may be facing in life. Now, birth, death, old age, and disease. Sorry, not much you can do about that. We're all going to die. We're all going to suffer some kind of disease. We were all born, and we're all going to, if we live long enough, we'll come to the point of old age. I saw an interview last night of a lady. She's 107 years old. She was testifying before the Congress yesterday. 107 years old. And it was interesting. She was very coherent, articulate. It was very interesting. But she will have to leave this world at some point. We all have to leave. So there's not much we can do about that. So what do we focus on? We focus on serving the Lord, hearing his glories. That will give us the blessings that we're looking for. The other things, they just happen naturally. The difficulties of life. There's not much more we can do about that. But we can do a lot about our consciousness, our awareness of life, and preparing ourselves to go back home, back to Godhead. And that's what's been given to us. So then, Srila Prabhupada references in the purport about the Goswamis. And therefore, I just wanted to share a little bit from the songs of the prayers of the 6 Goswamis. And I won't read the Sanskrit, although I love the Sanskrit. I'm sure Vishnu Gada could sing it so beautifully. This beautiful prayers. Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Paro Premamritambo Nidhi Dhira Dhira Janapriyo Priyakaro Nirmatsaro Pujito Sri Chaitanya Kripabaro Bhuvi Bhuvo Bharava Hantarako Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances to the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatana Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who were always engaged in chanting the holy name and the name of Krishna and dancing. They are just like the ocean of love of God, and they are popular both with the gentle and with the ruffians, because they are not envious of anyone. Whatever they do, they are all pleasing to everyone. And they are fully blessed by Lord Chaitanya. Thus, they are engaged in missionary activities meant to deliver all the conditioned souls in the material universe. And I just want to quickly refer back to the other verse about the 6 Goswamis. Yes, Nana Shastra Vichadanayaka Nipanu Sadharma Samstapaku. So the translation: offer my respectful obeisances to the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatana Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they're worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendent loving service of Radha and Krishna. So again, the 6 Goswamis are showing us, guiding us, explaining to us. We're so fortunate that we have the nectar devotion, we have the nectar of instruction, we have Srila Prabhupada's lectures where he refers to the 6 Goswamis, but they laid out this path of bhakti yoga, devotional service, how to do devotional service with love. As Srila Prabhupada says, you love someone, you want to glorify them constantly. So they're emphasizing the importance of hearing regularly, glorifying the Lord regularly. Find some way to do it. And when you do it with it. When you say Bhajitam Priti Purvikam, with some love, what does that mean? Let's think about it real quick. Attention, giving full attention. You say you love someone, but then you ignore them in the course of serving. If you invite me to your home and you offer me some nice prasad and you just throw it down on the table and walk away, how would I feel? How would any of you feel? It's not nice. But if you attentively, just like we have one Mataji, she's a dentist, such a wonderful devotee. When you go to her, she constantly says, Prabhu, how are you doing? Are you okay, Prabhu? Constantly. I think Vishnu Gadar can testify to that. Constantly, that vibration from her mouth calms my nerves. Prabhu, are you okay? I know she does it with devotion. It's obvious. So when you offer something to the Lord, how do you do that? That's why in the morning, when the devotees who do the puja for the deities, there's so many prayers that they have to chant. Why? To prepare their consciousness so they can pay attention to the Lord. One devotee in Atlanta years ago, he was Lord Jagannath's Pujari. He was so inattentive. And no matter how you try to correct him, he just would not correct himself. And every day he was sticking pins, touching the Lord's head. You know how you put the turbans on and not being attentive because I don't know, whatever his mindset was. And I'm not saying this with any relish, but one day he came running off the altar screaming. Why? One of those pins, he stuck it through his thumb and it was sticking through. And we were thinking, Prabhu, you have to be careful because you've been doing that to the deities. I don't know if Krishna did that, but it was a shock, you know. So very, very carefully. Now, when you're serving the deities, maybe that's a little easier to try and be attentive, to practice attentive service. Maybe when you're reading the Bhagavatam, we don't apply the same attention to reading the Bhagavatam. Maybe when we're chanting our japa, we don't apply the same principle of loving attention to the holy names. Fortunately, the holy names are so wonderful, they will bless us over time. But if we chant attentively, because conversely it says, inattentive chanting is not good, but we do it attentively. So when you read the Bhagavatam, like the 6 Goswamis, scrutinizingly, carefully, all the words, all the meanings, don't try to rush through. If you don't understand something, stop, call a devotee, ask for help, guidance, clarification, so you can make progress because that is the Lord is manifesting in the form of these transcendental vibrations, Bhagavatam verses, Srila Prabhupada's purports. This is the Lord manifesting in front of us. We should pay close attention. So I will stop there because I'd like to see if anyone has any comments, but that's the main point, is that this knot that is so difficult to undo, the word that Srila Prabhupada used, can be undone by the process of devotional service, especially pure devotional service, because the Lord himself will undo the knot. We don't have the power. We can't fight Maya. Come on, Maya is like one of the big servants of the Lord. That's like they say, when the police come to you, don't resist. That's the big discussion they have nowadays. Don't resist, because people are getting shot and killed because they resist. So you try to fight with Maya. Now, you do want to resist the urge to enjoy sense gratification, which Maya is presenting to us as a test. But you can't defeat Maya. We can't. She's empowered by the Lord. So the only thing we can do is pray, serve nicely, and then the Lord tells his servant Maya, okay, leave this one alone. Help this one make advancement. Because that same Maya, as we heard, this Yoga Maya, Maha Maya, same. Because Prabhupada said, the devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, was Arjuna in Mahamaya or Yoga Maya in Bhagavad Gita? Prabhupada said in the beginning, when he was making arguments, he was in Mahamaya. And then when he became surrendered, Yogamaya, because the same Maya was there. Anyway, so I'll stop there. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Balabhadra Prabhu.
Haribo Prabhu.
Thank you so much for that wonderful class. Let's open it up for questions for Balabhadra Prabhu. You can raise your hand or your virtual hand, type it in the chat, however you'd like to do it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, accept my base glory, Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept my obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I just wanted to say what a phenomenally balanced and truly Krishna conscious communication this was this morning from you. I truly appreciate it because what you did was like, ice on a hot fire in large quantity. Really putting it out, these things that distract the mind. And what you said was rooted in the essence of Krishna consciousness. Love, caring, devotion, consciousness, So it was very, very helpful in just like really, truly understanding what to be attached to understand to not jump from the frying pan into the fire and how detrimental that is. But ultimately that we belong to Krishna, yes. And service is the essence. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Haribo. Anyone else?
Mother Golokananda Priya.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, what a wonderful class.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you.
It's really get a lot of inspiration from your class. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you speaking about the sword, and I was reading one lecture, one part of Srila Prabhupada mentioned so much about, I would like to read it if you don't mind. Please. Just one paragraph. And Prabhupada said, one has to be engaged always in thinking. This is a sword. You have to take this sword of Krishna consciousness, then you become free. The knot is cut by this sword. So now how we get this sword, the process is described here, that is simply with faith, you try to hear, you will get the sword.
Wow.
That's all.
Wow.
Actually, our Krishna consciousness movement is spreading. We are getting the sword one after another, simply by hearing. I started this movement in New York. You all know.
You have your backpack too. I'll give you.
Manju, your mic is on. Turn it up, put it on mute. There you go. Go ahead.
I had no actually any sword. Just like in some religious principle, they take religious scriptures in one hand and another hand sword. You accept the scripture, otherwise I'll cut your head. This is also another preaching. But I had also sword, but not this kind of sword. The sword is to give chance to hear, that's all.
Hey, whoa.
I'm just thinking, because you've been reading, you are studying about the sword. And
That's
so
beautiful.
Prabhupada used this word so many times in this paragraph.
That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for inspiring and talking about how you have to be attentive in reading, and especially when you have to do any service, especially you were talking about devotees using pin and picking the deities, because I've been doing a lot of deity service.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, so this is very important. All the devotees who engage in, in dressing the deities and everything, have to be attentive in serving Krishna.
Yes.
Thank you very much for bringing this point.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we have a couple more hands up. We'd like to get to them all. We'll go in this order: Mother Vatsala, then Tushar, and then Bhakti Sham.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. My humble obeisances, pranam.
Hare Krishna, Mother Vatsala.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for the class, Prabhu. I like the way you extended this devotional service. sometimes we are given so many devotional service, but we have a limited time. Sometimes, our say, I have only 1 or 2 hours. I want to get it done. I guess, sometimes we are stressed out to do certain things. And I think we should probably prioritize what you want to do and then get what you can do at that time. It's not how much quantity you are doing, maybe a little quality of work with love for Krishna. That's what we can do. Another question is, you talked about Mahamaya and Yogamaya. Are we still in Mahamaya? We haven't gotten into the Yogamaya state yet. That's what I'm thinking. I am still in Mahamaya state. I don't know whether maybe at the end of my life, I'm getting old. So maybe at the end of 85, if still Krishna wants me, maybe one day I can see.
Well,
Thank you, Prabhu.
That Mahamaya and that Yogamaya, because Srila Prabhupada explains, what is that? Daiviyesha Gunamaya, this divine energy of mind, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature. So this is divine. We see it as something different. And I gave the example the other day, and I'll do it quickly because I know a couple more questions. It's like in Philadelphia, there's that prison. When you come, I think it's 95. When you come up 95, you see that prison, old prison there, really old. And I think it's like a historic site now. And I was telling the devotees that just across, there's the community of row houses, which are also made of stones. So that place is made of stones, and the row houses are made of stones. What's the difference? Same stones, same glass, same bars, everything. Difference is purpose. So in the jail is confinement against your will. And in your home is your castle, your freedom. But it's the same energy. So this material energy, I mean, my God, it's beautiful. It's Krishna's. You come in my home, you say, your house looks like hell. It's like a mess. I don't like your furniture. I don't like your carpet. I don't like anything in your house. Then get out. So you come in Krishna's world and you want to criticize it? It's Krishna's energy. It may be Maya, but it's beautiful because it's Krishna's energy. And then if you engage it in Krishna's service, it becomes even more beautiful. So that's basically how it works. So Arjuna was in Mahamaya. Very definitely, Prabhupada said it. He's Arjuna. What to speak of us? When he surrendered, he was in Yogamaya. Just like that. By Krishna's grace. So thank you for that, Mataji.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Appreciate
it. Thanks a lot.
My Madanga student, Tushar, he's one of my star students.
Hello, Prabhu. Again, thank you for the wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I had a slightly different take on the knot that you were talking about. It's natural for us humans to, form attachments in our material life, and sometimes that can extend into our spiritual life as well with, fellow devotees who we become close with. And I was actually kind of meditating on this yesterday and the day before. I was reading about the passing away of Bhishma Dev. I was just wondering, when he was about to leave his body, all the Pandavas were there, and there was real affection, or we can even say attachment between Yudhishthir Maharaj and Bhishma Dev and the rest of the Pandavas. But I somehow felt that Bhishma Dev, at the end of his life, he had to give up even the attachment for the Pandavas themselves, despite them being amongst the highest devotees of the Lord. How should we understand, kind of releasing that knot between devotees as well? I mean, is that something we should be concerned about at this stage, or?
Well, the way I began the class, if you remember, I was asking for prayers for my godbrother, Sesha Prabhu, because I have deep attachment for him, deep. And I mentioned going back to 1974. And I'm sure Kaivalya Prabhu knows him so well, and Drona, you all know him so well. And I have so much love, Krishna conscious, spiritual love, not because he's African-American and I'm African-American and we're homeboys, like I said, homeboy. No. Because I know the level of his devotion to Srila Prabhupada. I admire, I hanker for his association. Last time I saw him in Atlanta, we were just hugging each other, practically in tears. We're so happy to see each other because we know each other's background and history in Krishna consciousness. I have no idea about his background before he came to the movement. I don't really know. I know him as Bhakta Seth and then Seshadas and how much love. So Prabhu, you must love the devotees because that's transcendental, but not because you're Indian and they're Indian. This happens in our movement. You know, Bengalis, Gujarati devotees, South Indian devotees, Black devotees, white devotees, women. This is all ridiculous. So what happens when that knot becomes undone? You don't see that anymore. You don't see devotees for their bodies. Seeing a devotee for their body is hellish consciousness, especially if you apply that to your spiritual master, to see them in a materialistic way. It's a hellish consciousness. So your attachment for devotees to Prabhu will increase. And when the devotee is in distress, you will feel the pain. That is good for you. You understand? That is good for you. But if you're just attached to this body, that's not good. You'll have to graduate. And you don't have to do too many things extraneously about that. Listen to the next 3 classes. You'll get the clue how to become free from these kinds of attachments. They're all there waiting for. So yes, love the devotees, cherish the devotees, care about the devotees, serve the devotees. It's very helpful. So thank you. I think we have Bhakti Shan also. I enjoyed so much taking prasadam with Bhakti Shan the last time I was there. We had such a good time together. Nice.
Yes, that was very nice. Thank you, Prabhu. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly, Prabhu.
Okay, great. So Hare Krishna. I'm very fortunate that I was able to get on this class this morning. It's so I just want to share a quick story about an event that happened a few days ago. I was, is it okay if I share just
absolutely
just a quick story?
Thank you.
Okay, so sometimes for work I have to take trips, and this week I drove to Pittsburgh. So what I had to do was drive to Pittsburgh and drive back. And when I got to Pittsburgh, I had to take an Uber. So when I go on these trips, I always bring some books with me, some of Srila Prabhupada's books, so that I can find some, if I can, pass them out or hand them out to some people. So when I was in Pittsburgh, I got picked up in an Uber. And as soon as I got in the Uber, there was this man who was driving, and he had tattoos, he had blue hair, and the first thing he said to me is like as soon as I sat down, he's like, "Oh man, I just got some bad news. I got diagnosed with diabetes today." Oh. And he was about my age, right? So I'm 41, and he started just sharing with me, and I was like, wow, in my mind, like the light bulb went off in my head. I was like, this guy definitely needs to get some Krishna consciousness. Is like the first thing that came in my mind. So I don't know what it was, but he started sharing with me, and then I just started preaching to him, like whatever I had read in the Bhagavad Gita, in my small little bit of knowledge, I just started sharing with him, and he just soaked it all in. Like he was, because he was telling me, he's like, my wife died, my mom died, and so many things were happening to this man, but he was so receptive to hear the message of Krishna consciousness, and I was like really getting like heavy, I was like birth, death, old age, and disease, like like fully. And I ended up giving him 2 books, Beyond Birth and Death, and Spiritual Yoga, and by the end of the ride, it was like a 30-minute ride. He was saying to me, he's like, "I'm so happy that I met you today." And it was a quick thing. Like for me, I was just speaking what was in the Bhagavad Gita. I gave him the books, and I got out of the car, and I said, I showed him the picture of Srila Prabhupada. I said, "This, after you read these books, this is, just look this up, look up this man right here." And I was left with this like inspiration of wow, I felt like an instrument of Krishna. Like the whole purpose I had to go out there was to give this man these books. So just the quick reflections I have on that is like how the suffering in life, it seems on the material perspective, it seems like we have these horrible things happening to us, but it seems to create this fertile ground for to be receptive to the spiritual knowledge. And then like the benefit that can come from that is just, what comes from that is so great. So I was also just reflecting on how amazing it is that we have the opportunity to give these books from Srila Prabhupada, and then to have the community come back to and connect with, just present to the power of Krishna consciousness. So Hare Krishna, thank you for allowing me to share that.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, I think that's the end of the questions. I'd like to very much thank you, Balabhadra Prabhu, for being with us. Our gratitude to your insights that you bring us each time you give class. Everything's okay now with your We told the devotees you had your oral surgery, dental surgery.
Did you tell them? Did you tell them the dentist who I met? This guy.
No.
This guy has known me since he was 7 years old. I don't know how we connected it. And I just sent him some books in the mail. It was unbelievable. 7 years old. He remembers coming to the temple, said, I remember you. Oh my God.
Krishna's arrangement.
Yep.
Yeah. It's great to see you back with us. And we want to invite all the devotees tonight at 6:40. We recently started a shloka learning and memorization class. So if you're interested in learning the shlokas, proper pronunciation, the word for word, the English translation, as well as the Sanskrit, please join us tonight at 6:40. And then following that will be our Srila Prabhupada night, where we read about and study the Leela, the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, starting the Hare Krishna movement.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Everybody have a wonderful
thank
Krishna
you very much,
conscious day.
Prabhu.
Yeah. Have a beautiful day. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.